Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aldas Kriauciunas, and welcome to today's webinar to help you choose a path that's right for you. We'll be reviewing Purdue's 2 Executive MBA programs. I'm very happy to share that I'm joined by one of our alums from the class of 2019, Wendy Mehringer. Wendy, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello, everybody. Yes, happy to be here. I'm glad you're considering Purdue.
So Wendy and I will be available throughout the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box, or we'll also have time for questions at the very end. And I certainly have my questions for Wendy so that you can hear from her directly about her experience in the program. Let's look at, as you're thinking about executive MBA programs, the formats that you may be considering. So there's really 3 main formats in the MBA for working professionals universe. There's the online, certainly that's getting even more attention than it used to. But online, as we can see from our quick photo, you're generally at a screen, you're working fairly individually. Weekend evening programs bring people together for at least a short duration on campus, but there's very little interaction outside of the classroom. And then there's about a dozen programs, including Purdue's 2 EMBA programs, that have a residency format, where we meet less frequently, but when we do, it is for a longer period of time. And so here we have one quick photo showing, as the day is ending, the interaction that people are having, in this case, winning a competition against other teams. And taking it a step further, we believe that with a residency format, there's some things that you can do only that way that an evening or a weekend or an online certainly cannot. In this particular case, we have an example from a teamwork and leadership exercise where our students learned about rowing from the Purdue rowing team, and they actually put their conceptual ideas into practice. It's great because you can read about leadership and communication, but then when you're all put into something outside of your comfort zone, you suddenly start realizing how reality can be very different than the concepts. And so it's leveraging those interactions that are very important within the residency format and what happens outside of the classroom. Let's talk now a little bit about Purdue University. So Purdue, we just celebrated our 150th anniversary. It's Indiana's land-grant university, which means as a result, we have much stronger ties to the community, to our students. We're part of the Big Ten Athletic Conference. We're a leader in 200 different areas. So while today we're focused on the EMBA aspect, keep in mind that if your interests cross multiple disciplines, there's probably a resource, an online library, or something else that you can be contacting and interacting with others at Purdue. Large alumni base around the world, over 600,000 alumni. I don't know about Wendy, but certainly when I travel, when I wear my Purdue logos, almost everywhere I'm going to meet another Purdue alum. So in that, there is that great connection, and Purdue alumni are very loyal alumni. Purdue's brand, globally renowned. And in those rare instances that I meet people that don't know Purdue, they certainly know our most famous alum, Neil Armstrong. We're approaching 50,000 alumni. Our executive MBA program is about 3,000. And we have alumni chapters, of course, throughout the US and Canada, but in 50 countries around the world as well. So while your cohort may be 20, 25, 30 individuals, you're part of this much broader Purdue Boilermaker community. As we now pivot to talk a little bit more about our programs, the things that we'll be discussing are who your classmates would be like. We'll talk about our blended learning format. We started doing a mix of on-campus and online before the world learned what online meant, at least for education. So we've been doing it close to a decade now. We'll talk about the benefits to you and your organization, because your organization needs to be on board to make this work. We'll talk towards the end about getting support to be in one of our EMBA programs, and then we'll discuss next steps should you feel that this is a good match for you. So let's look at your classmates and what a typical cohort may look like. So here we have just a snapshot of some of the companies that have been represented over the past 3 years in our programs. I typically would ask, what is common across these companies? And the answer is really nothing. You can be in any type of organization, profit, not for profit, Fortune 500, family owned, a small business, and you can still be in our EMBA program. Really, the aspect that ties everyone together within the program is that we are looking for experienced managers that want to do two things: increase career opportunities, and they want to do it in particular learning from others, not just from the faculty, but learning from others in their cohort as well. So let's look at what a typical cohort may be composed and how it looks, and then we'll have Wendy give a bit more about her own background. So in terms of your fellow students, average of 15 years work experience, minimum of 5. We choose year 5 because that's the point we see people start having more management or leadership responsibilities in their organizations. The positions that people hold within their organizations very much reflect the years of work experience, and they were from middle manager on up to C-suite individuals. In terms of industry, because people can and do live anywhere in the world in our program, no one industry dominates, and we see that with the geographic background as well. About a quarter of our students live in Indiana, a quarter outside the US, and the rest are spread across the United States. In the traditional EMBA program that Wendy graduated from, it's a little bit heavier Midwest representation, and then our global EMBA program is certainly a bit heavier on the international representation. That gives you an idea of a rolling average of what our cohorts look like. I'd like Wendy to speak a little bit more about her background, and we'll see how she fits with the running average of our recent cohorts.
Yeah, sure, happy to. Yes, and I think I'm kind of average in most most buckets there. So I was 37 when I started, 38, coming on 38 when I started the EMBA program, and that I'm guessing we'll get to it at some point. Was kind of a feature of the program that I liked most. I wanted to be in a program with older at 38, older students than the kind of traditional MBA right out of undergrad. So yeah, I'm from Indiana. I live in Indianapolis, in Carmel, north side of Indianapolis now. I was a Ball State undergrad and went to grad school right after undergrad as well at Ball State, and then realized I wanted an MBA later in career, and so was looking for something that was again just a kind of a different format. Wanted to be around other people who had as much experience as I did, and some more. For the MBA experience. So, and Purdue was that for me, for sure.
Could you share what your undergraduate and your master's degrees were in?
Yeah, so I was a journalism undergrad and then grad school for public relations. At Ball State.
Excellent. And thank you for sharing that. Many people believe you need to have a management or business or econ undergrad to do an MBA program. Definitely not the case. And what we look for, and your background very much represents it, is we're focused on what people have accomplished after their undergraduate or graduate studies. So certainly the 15 years work experience that you brought in speaks to the richness that the cohorts can bring to each person in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look a little bit more at the curriculum across our two programs. So for the Executive MBA, we put the courses into really 3 categories. One are the functional courses, and so these are the functions that pretty much every organization needs to be able to operate. I keep saying the word organization and not company, because it's not just for-profit companies, but not-for-profits. Any type of organization can be represented. Wendy will share a little bit more about that in her background. Also, we have people from the military, from the government. Again, it's the richness of experience that you bring, not necessarily a cookie cutter approach that you have to have a certain background to be in the program. So beyond the functional courses, we have what we call the environmental. In this case, we're focusing on the environment within which organizations are operating. and then the integrative courses. These are courses that really take a across the organization view, and so you need to understand the functions of the organization and the environment within which the organization works, but this takes it together and adds its own levels of concepts and theories. So for example, strategic management has a whole view of the organization. Negotiations, you need to understand the different pieces of an organization. Same with change management and onward. I asked Wendy a question. I don't know if this was on our expected list of questions, but now that you've been out a year and in 2 days, I think, since graduation, are you finding some of these courses that you're more able to use, and maybe that's been changing over the past year or two?
Yep. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think even throughout the program, it was, you leave residency and you're just kind of on fire for this stuff. Like, hey, wait a minute, now I feel like I have this kind of newfound, treasure trove of knowledge in these different areas. And I mean, I would find that, yes, there was a certain model or a construct that could be applied, but it was more just, I felt like I was picking up more of the conversation, right? In a leadership role in the organization that I was in, and whether it was finance and having just better conversations with our controller or our VP in that space. And I mean, I just felt like all conversations at work were richer because I knew more and kind of was bringing more than just my kind of institutional knowledge or early education background. So yeah, I mean, I felt it from that first residency, onward. And I still keep the binders and of old material, which maybe isn't cool anymore, and we don't do binders. I don't know, but for me it worked, and that I can still pull things from, or especially the leadership piece. Stepping into a new organization, found that I kind of needed to go back to some of that and say, okay, how do I want to show up now in a new organization? So yeah, just find that at the most random of opportunities, these things kind of just pop up, and like I said, I just feel more plugged in and aware, and able to have conversations across the organization.
Very nice. I have a colleague that calls the Purdue EMBA program a curriculum for learning 15 new languages. The language of finance, of accounting, of marketing, of strategy, of change. In a way, that's what you're saying. It's richer discussions. They may not be with different people than before, but there's a level of understanding that comes with that. And that's why we do focus on what we call this general management curriculum. It's not an MBA of marketing or an MBA in econ, but it is because the leaders of organizations need to have this broader understanding.
Yeah, I can remember even just a kind of specific example, and from the finance course, and in past life, or the role that I was in when I started the program. We joined a holding company, and so there are other entities joining in this holding company as well, and looking at the valuation, and conceptually I kind of knew what goodwill was. You're like, oh great, that's goodwill, for somehow that finds itself in the in the model. But like, to really feel like I understood what they were talking about and contribute, no one was looking for my expertise on goodwill specifically, or frankly even the financial model. They want to know what I thought of the revenue projections and what we could deliver. But it just, little moments like that I'm like, oh my goodness, they're right. Purdue was right. That it just made all the time all the more well worth it.
Thank you. Question has come up, the difference between a traditional MBA versus an executive MBA. I'll share my answer, and then Wendy, I don't know if you even were looking at a traditional MBA when you were looking to go back to school. But in short, traditional MBAs are 2-year programs. You basically leave your job, you're unemployed for the 2 years that you're in a program. It's typically an internship in that middle summer between the 2 years. And then when you're done, you usually start with a new company, new industry potentially. So it's definitely a pivot. People in traditional MBAs may have 0 to 4 years of work experience generally, so much earlier in their careers. And so the discussions in class, because I've taught in both our traditional MBA and executive MBA programs, it's more focused on cases rather than the work experience. Whereas with an executive MBA program, the courses may be the same, but it's going to generally be less case-driven, much more driven on the peer-to-peer learning from each other, because again, there's so much you can learn, and then learning from each other's experiences. Pretty much everyone is employed as they go through the program, so you're learning and applying that information at the same time. And then the work experience requirements tend to be much higher for an executive MBA than a traditional MBA. Now, if Wendy, you want to add anything to that?
So I did not look at a traditional MBA. I did look at, several, I don't know, maybe a handful of other schools, was looking at weekend options versus the executive program. And so, yeah, for me, it was about the tenure and the experience level of everyone else in the program. I had started in MHA, so health administration, hospital administrators. I kind of thought that might be the route I would go. Back in like 2010 or 2012. And that was a lot of, maybe a couple of years out of school, out of undergrad, the students. And that was the biggest reason why I didn't complete it. I just did the certificate, not the full-on degree, because it felt like the conversation, it felt like I had to quiet myself in the conversation with class. Like, okay, wait a minute, no one wants to hear from me anymore. Like, because it didn't feel like others had experience to pull from. And right, if you're going to spend 2 evenings a week with these folks for the next 3 years, or right, whatever the model of that program was, just decided that wasn't a good fit for me. So looking then at the weekend programs, but then the EMBA kind of won out, because it's like, okay, wait a minute, I've been through a different experience and that didn't work. And so yeah, being with folks a little more seasoned and had more to pull from was absolutely what I was after.
Thank you. Let's now look a little bit deeper into the format of the blended learning. I'm going to review this and then I'll have Wendy comment on a few specifics, because the format is quite different than an online weekend or evening program. So both of our programs are 19 months from start to finish. We start with the program launch, typically here at Purdue University. And during those first 4 days, you meet the members of your cohort, meet the members of your first study team, you go through team building and team charter development exercises. You learn about the different platforms that we use within our programs. We've changed a lot since Wendy graduated, actually. We're moving to a platform called Brightspace, which replaces Blackboard. We're now using MS Teams instead of what was called SharePoint previously, and we are moving to Zoom away from WebEx. So a lot of changes that were actually in the cards well before the current challenges that many of us are facing. And then you have class sessions for each of the courses in the first module. So the start to the program is geared to really connect you with the staff, the faculty, and your peers in the program. Then you do the pre-residency or online portion. During that time, you're following the syllabus that faculty have prepared. You're doing readings, watching videos. You'll have individual and team assignments, and then typically a weekly team meeting. The team meeting is really the only synchronous event. Everything else you do within week by week at a time that makes the most sense for your schedule. So it's what we call asynchronous. The videos are already pre-made for the cohort for the class. So it does not require you to be logging in 8 p.m. every Thursday to listen to a lecture or something like that. With that pre-residency or foundation building part done, you come to campus here in Krannert Center. During that time, you'll have classes, company visits, guest speakers, career management support with an executive career coach, and then social events. Certainly looking at that, one may wonder, well, how is that possible given the COVID constraints in going on? And so just addressing that briefly, the Krannert Center that we're in, we have no other classes in our building. So when our students are here in residency, we basically control the whole building, control access. Our classrooms are much larger than our cohorts, allowing us to have that safe distancing. We have well-experienced caterers to make sure things are safe. We have our own cleaning staff. So much as there are some things we may not be able to do in the coming year or so, many things we still can, and those interactions, certainly in a safe way, will continue to happen. After that residency is done, students return home. They fly, they may drive, and then you have 1 week to prepare for exams, and those exams are over a 9-day period. Again, they are asynchronous. You choose when you take which exam, you download the exam, prepare your answers, and upload it. There are never more than 4 exams in an exam period. So that means if you only do them on a weekend, you can spread them out over the 2 weekends, or you may stagger it across those 9 days. Exams are done. You rest ever so briefly for about a week, and then you start your next pre-residency with new study teams. In the program, from the study teams to make them balanced and diverse at the same time, and then we change those study teams each module so that you work with as many different people as possible during your time in the program. That's a quick overview of the blended learning. Very few programs have this approach. And we do it this way because by only coming to campus about once every 3 months, we can pull from a much broader geographic range. I believe Wendy's cohort had people from about 12, 14 different US states represented. By increasing diversity of geography, you increase diversity of economic experiences, of industries, and of functions represented. So, as I like to say, we bring together a set of very experienced, successful managers from across the country who really aren't competitors. And we create a format that they can be learning from both the faculty and from each other. So let's look at that pre-residency part, because that's a bit different than what most people think when they hear online. So if Wendy, you could comment what that was like, because sometimes when people see 10 weeks of online, they think it means self-study. So if you can address that in what your interactions with your team and the cohort were like during that period.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, each of the 6 modules was different because of different classes, different people, different amount of work, right? And I think we'll talk about probably at some point that that it's the program is front loaded, and so when I look back, so that first module. Well, and I guess maybe more generally, any of the modules, right? The professors put the content online typically for the week, and then they would release new content then the next week. So, think of it as the 3 or 4 videos that are the lectures that, that you'd be listening, to from any one professor in a week, whether you're taking notes, whether you can do that while running on the treadmill, right? I don't know, everyone kind of found their way. But then, and then typically some, assignment to go along with it. That to be uploaded. Mod 1, because again, that's where, it was just the highest workload. I think we were doing meetings twice a week then with the team, but again, kind of comfort level of those in the group. Each of us took a different class that we were kind of running point on. Everyone was doing all of the work individually, but the idea is like, hey, I had accounting, and so I made sure I had all the deadlines and could kind of keep everybody on track. It was a very collaborative. Our cohort at least found that kind of, I found that module over module very, very collaborative in that, hey, we want each other to be successful, all the while my work versus her work kind of thing. But very much hey, we're all going to get through this together. And so, you're not going to miss a deadline on my watch kind of thing. So we found a lot of collaboration. I feel like module over module, there was a lot of kind of group time. But maybe that changes. Each cohort kind of has a different feel. I don't know.
Thank you. And I think you brought out a critical point, that collaboration, and that there's a desire for everyone to succeed in the program. And I'd say that's another aspect that's different compared to a traditional 2-year on-campus MBA, where people are much more grades focused and how is it going to help me get a job? In Wendy's cohort, pretty much everyone has a job. So it's not a my success will have to lead to your failure. It's a very different mindset. And pretty much any undergraduate or, pre-work experience education.
Yeah. And I would too, just Aldous, if I can just offer, just looking at some of the other programs. Once you get to kind of I don't know if it's this price point or right, there are other EMBA programs out there. And I just feel like, you know, if you're coming to Purdue, you're interested in high value. Yes, it's going to be a lot of work. Like this isn't one of these sexier, more slick programs. May or may not make the you know, sales brochure, but it's not. If you're coming for that, and so I think there's also just the people aren't as competitive against each other. I mean, we all kind of came in wanting to be successful on our own. We all had our own path ahead of us, kind of thing. But it was I think Purdue attracts that. You know, different than, you know, if you're looking at Chicago, then that's awesome, right? And if that seems like a good fit, but I think Purdue just attracts folks who come to Purdue for an Emba are looking for something a little different, and really in it for the content and, you know, and the value of the degree. There are easier ways to get an MBA than a Purdue EMBA. I would say that, right? And so there's just, I don't know, it's this kind of that sweet spot of who the Purdue Emba programs attract.
And that's usually my tagline at the end. If all you want is an EMBA, there are cheaper, easier ways to do it, but there's, at least as you're pointing out, so much more here. Let's jump to the exam period. Again, most people are used to going into a large room, lecture hall, you know, scribbling quickly for 2 to 4 hours. This is different. So if you could share what the online exam period was like and how you managed that process.
Yeah. Yeah, that was each of those weeks was probably, I was most planful, if you will, during those weeks, just because there's nothing like the pressure of the clock. So, you know, if I had 3 or 4, or whatever the number was, exams to take, kind of each night knew which exam was up next. You know, right, you download it, you know, how does an econ exam take you 3 hours and 45 minutes? I have no idea, but it does. And it's only 10 questions. But yeah, that was I needed to be kind of locked away. Nobody can bother mom, kind of thing during exam week. Specifically, and then yeah, like I said, the pressure of a clock, you upload it, and that feels really good to get another class behind you. But yeah, a lot of structure needed during exam week to be successful, I think. Which you learn through you learn through the pre-residency anyway. You're kind of conditioning yourself all along, and then maybe appropriately so, exam week is kind of game on, you know, to get each one of them in.
Thank you. So let's now do a deeper dive into the 2 different executive MBA programs that we do have here. And so on the left, we have what I call our traditional executive MBA. And to reference our earlier question, I call it traditional EMBA because traditionally people expect to come to the same campus each time they do come together. And so that's different than when we talked earlier about a traditional MBA, which is a 2-year on campus. You're generally unemployed as you go through the program. So this on campus traditional EMBA where the students, such as Wendy, do come to campus once about every quarter for 1 to 2 weeks at a time. And then at the end, there is a 2-week residency abroad. What's unique is that the cohort gets to choose across a range of options of where that 2-week residency will be. Wendy's cohort, if I recall, was Brazil and Chile. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Very nice farewell dinner at a Chilean vineyard. Very nice evening. And then we have specific electives within the program. Some are cohort based, and then others, the students rank order topics of interest. And then based on those interests, we split them into subgroups. So it's really a deeper dive. An immersion elective may only have 8, 10 students in it. Again, all from your cohort. We do not allow students from other master's programs on campus to come into any of our classes. And as Wendy has pointed out, there's a bonding that happens. There's a peer-to-peer learning that happens that's critical, we believe, to the experience. And so people coming from outside of our programs may not have that philosophy, and so it would not support the learning process that we've tried to develop. Then we have our global EMBA. So it's different because we meet different country or pair of countries every time we come together. So currently we're looking at 7 different countries on 4 continents and that program begins every spring. Its point of differentiation is you get that cultural and business immersion as we go to the different countries. It's not a tourist trip. I can tell you that. There's easier ways to visit Europe than through the global EMBA program. But in this program, you're learning from industry leaders, from company leaders during those company visits. You're learning from the locals. We have a peer school, as you'll see, in each of the countries. And that really gives you that immersion experience. And also in this program, you earn 2 MBA degrees, one from Purdue and one from our Dutch partner, TIAS. Courses are generally the same across the 2 programs, with the global EMBA having some what we call country or region specific courses that really leverage the location in the country that we're in. Both of them have the networking and executive career coaching. Both have a capstone consulting project at the end and cohort-based electives. So some similarities, some differences. It really depends partly if you want that global experience. Maybe you're seeking a global role in your organization, and that's a great way to get it. Timing as well. For some, starting in the fall is better than the spring. But again, the curriculum quite similar in terms of faculty and courses. Let's now look a little bit deeper into the Executive MBA program that begins this September. As mentioned, we start in September with the launch week. The first 2 residencies are 2 weeks each. Residencies 3, 4, and 5, 1 week each. And then the last one is a 2-week international trip. That one, the dates are still to be determined because it depends on where the cohort would like to go. This year's cohort chose to go to Spain and Italy. So again, different completely pair of countries than what Wendy and her cohort had decided on. Let's look at workload here for a moment. Wendy mentioned in particular the first 2 residencies being 2 weeks each. That's partly because it's a higher credit load. And so when you're off campus, there's more work to be done. And we tell people to plan about 25 hours per week when you're off campus at the start of the program. And then from residency or module 3 onward, it tapers off maybe 15, 17 hours per week. So Wendy, if you could kind of comment, what is the workload expectation when you're off campus?
I remember not wanting to believe 25 hours and 15 hours, but it's more right that it is wrong for that you know, how much time you'll be spending. Early on, yeah, mod 1 and 2, which is probably good out of the gate. It's all new, so you know, there's probably method to that madness. But yes, it was every night, not Fridays because I just couldn't do that. But you know, it was every night, Sunday. Well, I say Sunday through Thursday, different course each night, kind of mindset. Some people tried to cram it in on Saturday and Sunday, but it was all Saturday and all Sunday to get that, you know, just to absorb the content, right? Because again, you're watching videos and you know, doing the reading. And then, yeah, that does kind of taper then, you know, mod 3 feels really good. If memory serves, mod 3 felt really good. And, you know, at that point, when you're used to every evening, 1 or 2 evenings feels like no great shakes, you know, to get that done. But I would say I thought I was prepared for that. And, you know, you hear those numbers, but if that helps at all, that's how it worked for me. It was just kind of an every evening, you know, every evening exercise after the kids went to bed.
Thank you. And you made that comment every evening, but not Friday. And I think that's important because this is not a sprint, it's a marathon or multiple marathons. And so I would say those that do it well will take at least 1 day a week where they do no coursework. Because you do need those breaks. I'm certainly glad you did that for your sanity and family sanity, I'm sure. But that's one of our best practices. Best to spread it out over multiple days, certainly, but not every day because you do need to pause and give your brain a bit of rest from what you're doing. Let's look at how this program compares to some other ones. So here we compare the Purdue MBA with 9 others that people are often interested in. And we're looking at 4 characteristics that students have told us are important to them. Affordability, so it's an inverted scale, so higher numbers are better. Alumni network, because you want to be gaining those interactions with people. The size of the bubble is the number of electives. And so we have a large number of electives, but keep in mind, unlike some of our competitor schools, our electives are only for our EMBA cohort students. And then the shading indicates the type of format. We have the residency format, is relatively rare across at least these traditional EMBA programs. Let's look at our global executive MBA. So this program is a consortium with Purdue and 5 other top business schools around the world. And while these may not be household names in the United States, they're all very, very well recognized, well respected in each of their regions. TIAS in the Netherlands, Tianjin University, the oldest modern university in China, FGV Abate in Rio, Brazil. Certainly, you ask a Brazilian, they know that university. Politecnico di Milano, leading engineering technology university of Italy. And then ISM, a leader, not just in Lithuania, but within the Central European region. So by having these partner schools, we're able to have this network across 4 continents. And so that when we go to these different areas, we have, if you will, our ambassador school that helps us form those connections, not with just cultural areas, but with the companies that we're visiting. So this program begins every spring. Again, launch week. And then the first 2 residencies, we go to 3 different countries in Europe, namely within the European Union. So you get a bit of a triangulation. And throughout the program, what we're trying to do is give you a bit of a compare and contrast experience. TIAS very much focused on, in the Netherlands, on innovation. Lithuania on its human capital. Italy very much a small company, family-owned businesses that tend to be much smaller than their global competitors, but no less successful in terms of what they're doing. We then go to South America, a week in Brazil and a week in Chile, as Wendy's group did. And we chose those because we could have done a week in Sao Paulo and a week in Rio, 2 different cities of Brazil, but you wouldn't get that contrast. For many people, Brazil, Chile, they're both South America. How different can they be? I think Wendy would attest they are very different countries. And in fact, because that's where you, but your dog can participate too. Okay, we'll come back to you. Then toward the end, we come back to Purdue. And then our last residency, we spend time in China there as well, going to 3 different cities, Shanghai and Beijing, but also Tianjin, giving a bit of variance of different experiences. So Wendy, if you could just comment, what maybe surprised you, or what particular differences do you recall between Brazil and Chile when your cohort was down there?
Yes, let's see. So Brazil felt very, well, and granted, we were just at a different location, right? Being in Rio versus being in Santiago. I mean, Santiago was it's a city. I mean, I'm from Indianapolis. It felt like Indianapolis. It much more of a commercial center. We were staying downtown. Rio, we were on the beach, right there at the water. So that offered a kind of a different vibe, but it felt much more, Brazil felt much more laid back. Everyone was kind of doing their own thing. Even the entrepreneurs that we were talking to, just that this kind of independent spirit in that country. And so you were getting a heavy dose of that out of Brazil, whereas Santiago was more, it felt more of a kind of a Western culture that I was familiar with. Again, even kind of the voices and the folks that we were talking to, moving about the city was very, very typical to kind of I mean, to say Midwest metropolitan, I don't know, but it felt very comfortable and easy. We were near the mall, so our experiences there was different. I don't know, it just couldn't have been more different. Same continent, but couldn't have been more different. Opposite coasts, maybe. But yeah, it felt very different.
Thank you for sharing. And so even with the trip that the regular traditional executive MBA program does, we try to pick some contrast because it's in the compare and contrast that we think people can gain the most in their learning experience. We're here also taking a deeper dive, looking at Purdue's IMM Global EMBA with other global programs. Again, affordability, Purdue definitely the most affordable, large alumni network. The size of the bubble is the number of countries that we go to. So Purdue actually goes to more countries during its program than any other country, any other program. And as I mentioned, it's not just a drop in and leave. You really do get to know the country. And then the shading here, certainly there's more residential type of examples because of the global nature of the program. Let's now do a deeper dive into what a typical week may look like on campus, because that certainly is a challenge for some people, is how to get that permission to be away from work. So a typical week, Monday through Saturday classes, in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, typically a different topic to give you a bit of mental variety during the day. Breakfast and lunch here in our building. So again, it's self-contained. Our study rooms are here in the building as well. So we try to make it as user-friendly so you can focus on the learning and not have to worry about other aspects during the week. Then we try to have a company visit that complements one of the courses going on. Amazon, big, as we all know now, certainly, on logistics, distribution, operations, and so that goes nicely with the operations course. Where possible, we try to do a social event, basketball game. Purdue has had some very good teams in the past years, maybe bowling, something else. But again, the opportunity to be interacting with your peers beyond the classroom, sometimes through organized approaches and sometimes less so. I'll point out we have breaks built in during the day and afternoon, evening as well, because the fact of the matter is most people have some minimal expectation from their employer to stay engaged. And so what I like to say is that while you're immersed in the learning, and that's critical, you're not locked away from the rest of the world. So Wendy, if you could comment, either for yourself or others in your cohort, what type of expectation was there to stay engaged with your day job, if you will, and how were you able to manage that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say I felt fortunate that there wasn't a high degree of expectation. I mean, I was also company sponsored. So there was a kind of a two-way commitment. They had great interest in ensuring I was getting a lot out of the program as well. So I found that I was still connected via email throughout the day. Now, not live, but on breaks and whatnot, I was absolutely kind of flipping through the phone and checking email. And then I would usually check in with the boss in the evenings a couple times a week, just to, hey, is there anything I could be helpful, help put out fires with my team, right? Whatever that might be. I mean, it felt like that's kind of what everyone else was doing too. And, maybe once a residency, or to say once, twice, right? Like just, it didn't happen often where you'd see people kind of like pop up and take their work or their personal computer or their work computer with them, and they had to go take a call, during one of the classes. That doesn't happen often. I mean, when you were there, you really need to be plugged in, and it seemed to work that way for everyone in my cohort for sure.
I usually share with people that they can probably allocate an hour and a half a day for work-related tasks for at least most days. Would you say that's a fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, even the free evenings. I don't remember many free evenings while being in residency, right? I mean, it's nothing planned, but generally speaking, there's one of the classes throughout the day, being in this example, either, the mergers and acquisitions or the operations class, had something that they would give you on Tuesday that they were wanting to see again on Wednesday, and a group would be together in the study, in the study rooms and whatnot, which was part of the charm of the program, I think, too. But I would say to folks, like it kind of feels like The Apprentice a little bit. Like you get kind of this challenge, and the group has 12 hours to solve for it, if you will, which, again, kind of brought a little more energy and I think in value in the residency model.
And that's a good point. When I write free evening, it means the program has not planned something, but the faculty may certainly have planned something. And to Wendy's point, if there is a large deliverable due, maybe a major presentation, those tend to be towards the end of the week. We usually will order dinner in as well so that people can basically grab and go and go back to their study rooms if needed as well. So no one goes hungry on my watch, certainly during residency. But again, in light of current COVID restrictions, we're moving towards individual served meals. We will continue to provide breakfast, lunch, and some dinners. But during Wendy's time, it was more of a buffet style. This will be more individual again, making sure that you can focus on the learning, but in a safe environment. Looking at the program tuition, so both of our programs are all-inclusive regarding the tuition. So it is tuition, most fees, course materials, ebooks, housing when you're on campus at a nearby hotel. Once you're on campus, if there is transportation to some event, we cover that as well. We've talked about the meals and then many of those other aspects that help you leverage the EMBA experience, the career management support, the social events as well. Here's Wendy's cohort, I believe, at a basketball game.
Yes, that made me smile. I wasn't expecting to see a picture of the folks but yeah, those are my people. Good to see everybody.
Very nice. And then really all that you have to do is get to and from campus and come with some of the meals. So it really is meant to be all inclusive. And tuition is the same for both programs, $85,000, 5 payments of $17,000 each, spread over multiple years. And I emphasize that because many of your organizations do tuition reimbursement on a calendar year. So this approach lets you leverage multiple years of reimbursement. Let's talk about benefit to the firm, because as you saw, to be on campus for 1 or 2 weeks at a time, you need to have that support from your organization. Let me mention general things to discuss, but then Wendy maybe can mention how she had that conversation with her organization. We did do a deeper dive on this topic last December. It's in our archived webinars where we dedicated the whole hour to how to get company support. So coursework, certainly you're gaining as you go through the program. As Wendy said, already after each module, she's gaining an ability for richer conversations, applications that you can do immediately. Our surveys show the benefits that our students and alums bring to their companies. After graduation, we continue to have ways for you to keep learning. In fact, in June, we have our next continuing education online webinar. Purdue does different events. Alumni clubs do different events. We also reach out to our alumni for consulting projects as well. And then the networks that form the networks, they're not just a calculated network, but I think it's like a new family that you have formed during the 19 months that you're in the program. So Wendy, if you could just comment a little bit how you had your company discussions or organization discussions, a little bit on that network that formed while you were in the program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I started looking at the MBA, I was hoping the company would sponsor it, but when I had started looking, tried to have those conversations with our local executives and then, with the holding company executives as well. And frankly, just maybe just got lucky. I don't know, but the CEO of the holding company had done an executive program, which frankly I didn't even know the term executive MBA until I started looking. But that was the model that she had done, and we were a nonprofit organization, and so she was a big believer that an MBA is kind of what distinguishes you. You need to show that you can play with the for-profit guys as well. And so just on lots of fronts, she was supportive of it. had a transition of CEO before the actual program started. So there was a bit of a roll of the dice of like, so this was the commitment the organization made. But he too was a fan of it. His thing was, okay, you know, you're in, you're going to just do a deep dive. You'll finish your 19 months, and on the other side of it, we'll be better off for it. So, you know, just, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to work in an organization, and that was, my organization was relatively small compared to where I am now. But that organization that really kind of took that, hey, we need to develop our talent and make sure we have a pipeline of leaders. So I just, again, count myself fortunate, kind of right place, right time, and believe that I had contributed enough and shown my value that they were willing to continue leaning in on that. So it was a lot of discussion, but it was building, you know, each time. So felt very fortunate.
Thank you. We had a question come in. The professional backgrounds of the type of members we'd be meeting with at these various international locations, is it disclosed to us prior to going? How are our two groups aligned in terms of putting together an optimal meeting? Very nice question. So what we do, the company visit, it's a company visit, and then we have a meeting with a senior manager. And so we choose the company rep to be someone that is knowledgeable and can speak to strategic and high level issues, so you can understand the business models that they're working through, the business challenges that may be unique to their particular situation or to their particular country. In terms of alignment, we share the backgrounds of the students in our cohort as well, so they have an understanding that these are not people just out of an undergraduate program, but these are experienced professionals coming in to be interacting with them. And then in terms of the companies that we choose, at least within the international locations, we work to make them, some of them be foreign owned and some domestic. We try to have a mix of manufacturing and service organizations as well. So because our cohorts have a wide profile of different backgrounds, we try to have a mix of different types of organizations that we're going to interact with and to learn from during our different visits. Here, when we do the visits in the greater Lafayette area, they tend to be more focused on some particular function. So during the innovation entrepreneurship class, we go to a entrepreneurial company started by a Purdue alum in the general region that has a very innovative medical product, for example. So here it tends to be more linked to specific type of company. Hopefully that answers that question. Let me look at and discuss career impact. So within the program, our goal is that people are able to leverage the EMBA to move their career forward as well. And that may be because of salary bumps that they're looking for, but more so it's because they want to contribute more to their organization, maybe to a new organization, maybe starting their own company as well. And so in working with the executive career coach, you can help define what function you'd like to be in, what industry, what geography, and then you work through the coaching sessions to define it, develop a plan, and start executing on that. Our surveys and those done by the economists indicate that there is a definite impact, both salary and career progression, that our students get from graduation to 2 years post-graduation, but a number of people also get promoted during their time in the program. In fact, Wendy, I believe you changed organizations while you were in the program as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it was module 5 or 6, or yeah, towards the end of the program, I wasn't part of the plan on the path that you know, as you talk about it, but it just kind of the reality of how opportunities come, I guess. But yes, ended up switching from a nonprofit to a for-profit organization. But I'm sure the MBA had some, you know, had some, was one variable, I guess, in that transition. And frankly, I think just made me feel more confident and more curious about, you know, kind of different opportunities than what maybe my original path was.
In speaking with other alums, by being in a class with people from 25 different industries and different career paths, they say that those discussions just make them aware of maybe options or opportunities they may not have had they stayed with just people in their same functional or industry area.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, absolutely.
As we talk about financing, a question came in, was the cost that I quoted for both of the EMBA programs, and yes, both the global EMBA and the traditional EMBA are both $85,000. Our goal is that you choose a program that's the best fit for you rather than letting cost drive which one is the best fit for you. In terms of financing, so many companies do provide support, so have those discussions as early as possible of what that support may be. We can share with you a toolkit that can help you in those conversations with your either HR rep or your director. Most of our students receive some tuition assistance, and if two or more join from the same organization, you receive an automatic 10% tuition scholarship discount. And what many do as well is that they develop a plan how after each of the residencies, when they go back, they can be sharing what they've gained with others in the organization, certainly with your own team that you're managing, but you might do a brown bag for others in the organization as well. Then personal support, people use savings, loans, post 9/11 GI Bill, and then scholarships that we provide. And in total, what we find is that people are able to put together, if you will, a financing package of company support, of loans, of savings, and of the scholarship if needed as a way to cover the cost of the program. If you are looking at loans, Kirsten Reynolds at Purdue's Financial Aid Office is really, really helpful, and she knows our programs the best, so she would be the person to reach out to with additional questions. Wendy, anything you want to comment on this?
No, I don't have anything to add.
In terms of next steps, we invite you to share your resume with us for a review. We assess it based on criteria developed by our admissions committee. We can make a GMAT waiver determination. You should be looking at other schools because you're only going to do an EMBA once, and we can provide you with a comparison of our programs with up to 3 other ones. Have those discussions internally and with your family as well. I think Wendy would agree that this is a family decision. You need that support network because you're all going to be sacrificing during those 19 months, and having those discussions early on is going to be important as well. Very rewarding, but still there's a sacrifice involved. We continue to do our monthly webinars this month, and then in June, in July, it's our general overview, but then also in July, we'll be doing a deeper dive and looking at how to manage that time away from work as well. I invite you to come visit us on campus when we have our cohort in. Again, we'll do it in a safe way, making sure that you can still see what that EMBA experience is like. An online application, which is fairly straightforward. And as Wendy has made it clear, get ready to be challenged if you are admitted into the program. For deadlines coming up, so August 15th for application fee waiver in the program, August 1st for priority scholarship review, and then priority application by September 1st. Again, given many of us are dealing with uncertainty, we've pushed the deadlines out just a little bit further to give you time to get everything lined up for our September 14th program launch. And then for the Global Executive MBA, December, January, and February in terms of deadlines. And then March, we do the program start here at Purdue. Here's proof that people survive and thrive and smile upon graduation. And so I think Wendy would agree that those 19 months go by fairly quickly.
Yes, absolutely. And as I was saying, maybe before folks joined, I look back on it all the more fondly. I mean, the time just flew by. My kid's age 19 months. I don't think I did, but incredible experience. I would say if you're curious at all, just keep the conversation going. Find another alum to talk to. If this is intriguing to you at all, the Purdue program is exceptional.
Excellent. One question came in was whether or not people individually choose where to go for their international residency, or is it a group decision? And the answer is it's a group decision. Each cohort develops their own process of how they're going to do the selection. We give a list of about 10 countries to choose from, and then the cohort goes through and chooses. Again, it's meant to be a great cohort experience, and you do that experience by being together as you go to the 1 or 2 countries that you would be choosing. If you're interested in learning more, again, I'm Aldas Kriauciunas, Executive Director, and Nancy Schmiegel is my colleague, Associate Director of the Admissions here for our 2 Executive MBA programs. I know we're coming towards the end of our time here. Certainly, there's time for another question if anyone would like to type that. If you think of questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me, and I can connect you with Wendy, or I can share your questions with her. So I'll ask Wendy one quick final question. We've covered a lot of good ones, so again, thank you for sharing your experience. What advice would you give to others considering pursuing an EMBA program? Given that you've been through the whole process, you're a year past graduation, what advice would you give to someone else, such as the people on the webinar, as they're considering following their EMBA journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's for me, and even just talking to some of the others and knowing how others came to our program, it's like I said, I'm just a big believer of you've got to keep the conversation going and lean into it. I mean, I thought about an MBA, even started, like I said, the MHA and just the nonsense. And it's like, you know what, if you're going to do it, lean in and do it. And you could spend another couple of years thinking about it, or you could be done in 19 months. And I get there are a lot of personal commitments, and I had a 12-week-old when I started my first day on campus for launch week. I had a 12-week-old at home, my first week back from maternity leave. But it was an incredible experience. And so whether it's Purdue or otherwise, if you're curious about it and you're thinking about an MBA, that fire in the belly or fire in the heart's probably still going to be there. And just do yourself a favor of continuing to lean into it. You can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
Thank you very much for sharing that. And Wendy's experience points out to a piece of advice that I give to people. There never will be a perfect time to start the EMBA. I mean, Wendy could have said, "Oh, let me defer for a year. Let me, child, want them to be a little bit bigger." There's always going to be something going on. There are bad times to start, but there's never going to be a perfect time. So keep that in balance as you consider. I've spoken with people that have waited 20 years to start their EMBA program, and they do, and I respect them highly for not giving up on that dream. But again, keep in mind it won't be optimal. Many people in Wendy's cohort, things were happening throughout the program, but we all supported each other very nicely. Very strong finish to the program as well, and here you are, a year later. So, thank you, Wendy, for joining today. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for all of our guests as well today. And again, feel free to reach out to Nancy or me with any questions. Send in your resume or any other way that we can help you in your executive MBA journey. With that, I wish everyone a great rest of the day and a very nice holiday weekend as well. Thank you.